In this video, we're going to talk about inequalities. And inequalities have three different parts. They have a variable, remember, which is your letter. We have an equation symbol, which is the greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. Now, when it has that little line underneath, it's like half of an equal sign. So these ones do not have equal to's, but these two do. And a number, any positive or negative number, which is also an integer. But sometimes they can have decimals, so that wouldn't be an integer. So these are examples of what an inequality could look like. Now, I want to practice reading this. So I refer to these signs with the pokey side and the pushy side. So the little side is the poke, and then this big side here is the push. You can think of it like your hand. You can put your finger out and you can poke somebody, or you can open your hand real big and you can push them for the different versions of the sign. So if we read this, we're always going to read from the letter. So I'm going to put a note here. Read from the letter. And that'll make sense whenever we get to these two here. So we have F is, now it's being poked, so it is less than, and it has part of an equal sign, so it's also equal to, so it can be or equal to. -5. So what does that mean? Well, a number that is less than -5, if we look at a number line, would be, if you think about it, here's 0, and here's -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and then we need numbers less would be like -6, and then keep going down the number line. It says it can be less, so it can be any of these numbers here, -6, -7, -8, any of those numbers, and it can be equal to -5 too, so it could also be -5. It can be any of those numbers there, and that's what's different about an inequality versus an equation. An equation just has one answer, whereas an inequality can have a bunch of answers. So if we look at the next one, let's write that one out. And this one says t is less than 7.25. So t is less than, t is getting poked, it's the smaller side, 7.25. So any numbers that are smaller than 7.25 could be t. 1 could be t because 1 is less than 7.25. 0 could be t, 0 is less than 7.25. Any numbers that are less than 7.25 on the number line could be t. Now, this one, it's where this read from the letter becomes important because we're going to start with B. B is getting the small side. B is less than 6. So any numbers that are less than 6, I could plug in there. So 3 could be there, 2 could go there, 4 could go there. Any of those numbers are less than 6. Same thing with this one. M is, it has the little side, so it's less than, but it also has half of an equal sign because an equal sign has double bars. So it's less than or equal to 2. So if we go back to our number line, it can be 2 because it's equal to 2. So it could be 2, but it could also be all the numbers less that would fit into that inequality space. So if we talk about graphing an inequality, here's how we can think about it. So we have greater than, which is just an open circle. A less than is an open circle, and the greater than or equal to is a closed-in circle, and a less than or equal to is a closed-in circle. So how can we remember this? Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to put a mark on our number line. So say if we look at this last example here, 2 is greater than or equal to m, or if we read it from the letter, m is less than or equal to 2. We know it's equal to 2, so just like we used to do, we can just put a dot on 2 because it can be 2. But it can also be anything that is less than 2. So it can also be all of these numbers here. And let me do that with a highlighter. All of these numbers, it can also be, and it keeps going. So I can put an arrowhead on it. So that comes back to this symbol here, these symbols. Now, because this was backwards, I'm reading it backwards, so that's why it matches with this sign. But if I look at, say if I look at this one, let me undo my work here. F is less than or equal to -5. I know F is equal to -5, so I can put a dot there. But I also know it's all the numbers less than that, so I can go this way. And all those plus 5 would be the answer. Now, let's look at this one. T is less than 7.25. So if I come up here, T is not equal to 7.25. It's just less than it. So what we have to do in this case is we're just going to put a placeholder at that 7.25. So the placeholder we're going to use is one of those open circles. So we're going to put a placeholder, and then we know T is less than, so it's going to be a placeholder plus all of these extra below. We don't count the placeholder as an answer. The placeholders, that's why it's the open circle. You can also think of when people are protesting, they'll always throw their fists in the air and they'll say, "We are equal," or whatever they're trying to protest about. And they always throw a closed fist in the air whenever they're saying that you're equal. You don't hold up a fist in the air with an O and you say, "We are equal." Okay, so whenever you see that half equal sign, you're going to close up your fist, and that can remind you that you need a closed-in circle. All right, so let's look at these examples here. So it says identify the inequality that is graphed. I find it's always easier to start with your letter, so I'm going to use X. You can use any variable you want. And in this case, our dot, or our open circle, is on 0. And X is always the line, is always the arrow that comes off of the circle. So this is X, and all these other numbers here, even though the arrow doesn't go that far. So because we're going this way, this is the greater side. X is greater, and it's not filled in, so it's just greater. X is greater than 0. X can be any of these numbers that are greater than 0. If we look at the next one, I'm going to put X, the spot where the dot is, which is 3. And then I'm going to highlight it just so I can pay attention to what I'm looking at. Remember, the arrow is always X. This is the greater side. So X is greater than, and because it's colored in, it's also equal to 3. Okay. Let's do one more. X, and then we have -3. Remember that the arrow is always X. Now in this case, this is the less than sign. So X is less than, gets poked, not equal to though because it's not colored in. Okay, I want you to try number 4 on your own. So we have X, the dot is on -4. The arrow represents the X. It's less because it's to the left. And so X is less than, and because it's filled in, it's also equal to -4. So it can be any of those answers plus -4. All right, so let's do some practice on the next page. It says graph the following inequalities. So we're going to graph these this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the number first. We're going to go to -9, Now let's look at our sign. And actually, let's write this out in words before we do any graphing. Let's read this. It says y is greater than, remember it has half the equal sign, so we're going to say or equal to -9. And I want you writing this so that you get practice reading it. So it says y is greater than or equal to -9. Now because it's greater than or equal to, it's equal, we have that closed fist, we have to put a closed-in circle above the 9. And it says y is greater. Well, this is the greater side. So you're going to take your pencil and you're going to draw an arrow that goes towards the greater side. And that's it. That's how you graph an inequality. Let's read the next one. Now this one's backwards. G is to the open side, so greater than 7. Now, are we equal? No, so we don't have that closed fist, so we're going to come to 7 and we're just going to put a placeholder. It's not equal to 7, but we have to put a placeholder there to know where we're going to start from. G is greater than 7, so I have to make my arrow go to the greater side of the number line. Where are the greater numbers than 7? They're this way. So let's write this one. D is less than 4.5. So there's no equal sign, there's no closed fist, so we're just going to put a placeholder at 4.5, which is about right here. And it says D is less. Less is to the left, so I'm going to go this way. Okay, I'm going to do number 10. I'm going to skip around a little bit. K is greater, because the big side is towards the K, than 6.5. So we're going to come to 6.5. We're not equal, not closed fist, so open circle. And it says K is greater, so we're going to go towards the bigger numbers. I want you to pause. I want you to do 8 and 9 by yourself. Okay, and there are your answers for 8 and 9. All right. So in this piece, we're just going to identify the following inequalities. So this is just like we did on the first page. We're going to start with a letter. I like X, and the number, -4. Remember, X is represented by the arrow. So where is X in relation to -4? X is greater than, and is it equal with that closed fist? No. So just X is greater than -4. For number 12, start with a letter, write the number, which is 5. The arrow represents X. X is less than. Is it equal with that closed fist? Nope, just less than. And then number 13, we have X. In this case, we have a decimal, which is 2.5, 2.5. X is represented by the arrow. X is less. And does it have that closed fist with the closed equal? It does. So X is less than or equal to 2.5. So X could be 2.5. Okay, I want you to do 14, 15, and 16 on your own. Okay, and there's your answers for 14, 15, and 16.